Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Jujutsu Kai, Chapter 150, Perfect Preparation Part 3. I can't wait for Part 4. I can't wait to see this man destroyed, because I'm sure it's going to happen. All he's got is Naobito's curse technique. I'm sure this is going to work out. Anyway, hey everyone. So, quick recap. As you recall, last time, Mai died, and Maki killed her dad, because he was responsible for putting Mai in a situation where she died. In this chapter is the fallout from that, right? It is a wonderfully cathartic chapter. If you really like seeing people get absolutely destroyed, this is definitely the one. Because of my dying, as the chapter, I believe that this chapter describes it as destroy everything, a curse entrusted to Maki by her sister. Honestly, the color spreads look really good for the chapter. It got a lead cover page. Honestly, super good. When you get into the actual chapter here, it's interesting what the chapter ended up doing as it's showing Maki's complete destruction of the situation and also bringing up some really interesting ideas here about how much of a monster Toji was. It's just showing how nothing can really stop her. It did really well with that oppressive nature, and ultimately when you see her doing the things, it's pretty cool. Now, mind you, the chapter as I read it has a few incomplete pages, which is unfortunate because that was during like one of the really good spots. But what can you really say? Anyway, functionally, this is the rampage of Maki getting revenge for her sister. We're seeing her do good on that request. And we also, while the Zenin, ironically, while the Zenin is still alive, we're also getting introduced to their systems. So that's pretty funny. It's pretty funny in the chapter where this is getting destroyed, you're finding out about them. But appreciated, good to know. So what you saw there was that the author had to set them up to look impressive, so that we knew what exactly the scale was here. Because like if Maki took out randoms, it would have been like, okay, whatever. But if she was taking out people that were semi-grade 1 or whatever, then you can understand where she was in the grand scheme of things. And there were really interesting things going on. So let's go into the chapter proper. So the first page was the establishment page. As we find out, there's a system by which they're able to alert everyone that Ogi was murdered. I'm actually really curious because Maki was still in the curse pit. So I'm curious as to if they had people watching the whole time to see that she had done that. And if they had done that, it's actually pretty interesting how, you could watch this girl almost be murdered by her father, but then you turn around and you declare her the murderer, and it's like, okay, yeah, 100%, you guys are big hypocrites if that's the thing. But anyway, on that first page, we got introduced to a new guy, Ranta. I don't think I've ever seen this guy before. Now, the second page was pretty much, from what I understand, it was pretty much set up for hubris. It was pretty much this guy setting up his ego only to see it crashing down later. So, as we saw on this page, the leader of the Kukuru squad was saying even Ogi can be defeated if he's attacked while sleeping or on the toilet. So that's just a phrase that just tells you, well, everyone has their weak points. And it's pretty much just there to take away Maki's accomplishment. Because when you look at that one, it's quite obvious that these guys don't have the context of what happened. Well, in terms of making these guys people you want to see go down, the chapter did really good, right? It comes in underestimating Maki, and then you have this guy who has an extremely punchable face, and he's quite overconfident, is what you could say. Now, as we find out, this organization, they don't got any curse technique. So I don't know what that says about cursed energy, because curse technique is different, right? But we understand they spend day and night training their martial arts. Prior to rolling in Juju Tech, Maki was also enlisted with them. I think it's interesting that, because they know she has a restriction, and that restriction, yeah, wasn't the best before Mai dies, but that restriction does give her an advantage. It was just interesting to see them go in. They must have really thought that their training put them above her restriction. Anyway, the mooks go in. They find Maki, and we find out that she still has the other sword. So that was good to know. Good to know that she has two swords. Although I think it's the one guy's masterpiece. I'm not sure. It's hard to really see. It has to be. There's not really much else it can be. There's one thing I'm kind of sad about is that we didn't find out the function of Mai's sword. But honestly, you're probably going to find out next week, right? It's probably going to happen next week. Anyway, The next sequence we see is Maki surrounded by a bunch of mooks. Now this one was important just because this is where Maki has like her moment of doubt, like where she regrets the things that have happened thus far. For this, I thought that was nice. It makes sense that she would have a moment of doubt here. That said, falling down into the hole that is the Zen'in, like all things considered, I think that wasn't the right path, like honestly. Because she would have just been like her mother, pretty much, at the end of the day. And we already saw like how empty of a life that woman was living. So, unfortunate the way things went. If anything, maybe a little bit too much mercy to their family, but that family had so much pull as well. Anyway, she remembers her sister's dying wishes, right? And then we get to see Maki being amazing again. So now the next sequences are just her destroying everyone. Of course, she is pretty much like Toji now. So there are just a bunch of fight scenes. They all looked good. The choreography looked really good. The kills that Maki went in with, if you look at it, they're all very unique. We go from just flat out beheadings. We go with some really wicked, just rip from the neck up. We have some leg slashes, some tendon cuts. We have some good kicks that seem to like just turn a guy's head the entire way around. We have, again, good choreography with handstands. I'm pretty sure she stabbed someone in the groin. It kind of looks like that would have gone right into the groin. It looks kind of like the leg, but that might also be the groin there. These guys got really screwed over. Overall, brutality is definitely visible. So for just the choreography and brutality, I think the chapter was pretty good. From there, we move into the next sequence of the fight where we find out about the Hay Squad, the squad of the people who, as certified by Jujutsu Tech, are semi-grade 1 and above, the Zenin's strongest squad. So obviously, when you see Maki trivializing them, it feels good. Now, unfortunately, at this sequence is where you have the curse techniques getting involved with the one sword guy, and that's where we also have the pages being incomplete, which unfortunate. In that sequence, we lose the man that could manipulate stone to make those arms, and we lose the leader of the Kukuru squad. But in those pages, we also find out about a new curse technique, specifically coming from Ranta. So Ranta is able to do a thing where he manifests two eyes, and those eyes bind Maki in place. So it's a restriction technique, right? When you see Junichi running in there to get her, it's a restriction technique. Now, as we see in the busted pages, Maki figures out, or well, it's not even an issue of Maki figuring out. Maki just does it. She's able to, fight through the restriction and destroys the eyes. Now, here is pretty interesting because we actually get a lot to understand how this technique works. So those eyes are probably a reflection of the guy's proper eyes because we see him bleed out. So it was actually pretty cool. That's actually, I think that's a pretty unique technique. It's got its little weaknesses right there, that being the eyes that get manifested. If those things get broken, then you'll get broken as well. I think overall, it's a cool power, and I think what you saw with Junichi here going in while Ranta used it, I think you could see that it's a power that was probably used in a lot of operations, like in a lot of team-based operations. Anyway, Ranta does say something really interesting, that being that the clan still exists because Toji-san's whims. You must have realized it too. Right now, Maki has become exactly the same as him, and that they have to kill her. So that pretty much just says to me, they're saying, yeah, if Toji decided he wanted to destroy us, he would have done it. Which is honestly cool to hear. It's always cool to hear about how much of a monster this was. Good thing that this guy was just a womanizer and decided to leave on his own accord. But yeah, seeing the absolute fear unleashed on them, they deserve it. They're dicks. There's not many redeemable people within this group. Megumi is the only person that's worth defending here. Anyway, you see Junichi's ability, which is just a bunch of fists coming down from the sky. It looks like heaven's judgment. And I actually really enjoy what they did here. With Ranta being like, oh, great, I see the shadow. That must have been him. He took him out. Great, I can pass on peacefully now. So that's what happens there. So when you have Maki passing by him, I think what's intended to be read here is that Ranta's either falling unconscious or he passed away. If the eyes were a significant thing, like honestly, when you see the amount of bleeding going on, I wouldn't be surprised if he did die here. But yeah, the image of Maki passing by with that guy's head in her hand, it's a pretty cool image. And I especially like it. I like that little mechanism. Now, it's interesting because the way that the page is constructed, you see this guy's dialogue, but Maki is there the whole time because of the way the page is constructed. So this is just an unfortunate thing. It's a really weird way of having a character die thinking something good has happened, or go unconscious thinking something good has happened, and then just have the juxtaposition there with the reality. Really, really interesting. I mean, mind you, the guy also has his eyes closed, so he doesn't know what's going on. Anyway, final page is, of course, Naoya showing up, criticizing Maki for not having a heart, and Maki's just stone cold. I can't wait to see what she's gonna be like once she meets up with Megumi again, because Megumi is still a nice guy. But given that she wanted to make the clan a place for Mai to be able to hang out, I really hope that this doesn't turn into her going into a despair-fueled angst fest and aiming at Megumi, because that would just be a real dick move, right? But speaking of dicks, Naoya, he's the chief of Hei, which is just to say that he's the strongest of the group. Whatever. Look, everyone's talking about how Toji's a danger. Even if now, even if Naoya gets a few good hits on Maki, let's face it, this man has been built up to be the biggest asshole we've seen in a long time. Come on, even when you look at that shit-eating grin, man. Look at that guy. Anyway, when you're seeing this here, I feel next week this is build up for something amazing. I cannot wait to see this guy. I hope he cries. I'm not gonna lie, I hope he cries. If Maki makes him piss his pants too, I think that'll be great. If Maki bullies him the same way he bullied her, that'd also be great. Um, It'd be good too to see Maki use the effects of her cursed tools. That'd be extremely neat. She might keep him alive if she has to find out where the rest of the stuff is as well, I guess. But yeah, I'm nothing but excited. This has been a long time coming. Actually, only a few weeks. Still, I can't wait to see Naoya get throttled. I hope he gets punched in the face, and like Maki makes some comment about how his face looks all messed up. Yo, if Maki has a sequence where she just restrains him and punches him repeatedly over and over and over and over, and he's crying for mercy, I would be 100% in. Oh, but this is good. This is good. If there's ever been a time that we can look at an example of how to build up a real big asshole and then like have the comeuppance, this is definitely a good case study for it. But overall, anything else worth saying? Yeah, no. When Junichi used his Fist of God and crushed that place, it looked pretty good, like pretty powerful. Um, Glad Maki survived it though. Well, if she could survive that, it feels like she could survive anything. I feel like you're gonna need some really hardcore techniques if you really want to destroy her. But we'll have to see. Next week is gonna be the big one. Who's gonna win? I really hope it's Maki. Like if Naoya wins, it's gonna be like a giant upset, which will be respected. But that was Juju Kai for this week. It was telling us about the Zenin squads before they got wiped. Good to know. Overall, this just seems like this is going to be great. I can't wait to see Maki let it rip in the actual calling game, because at this point, she looks like she's going to be a great asset. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below for Juju Kai, chapter 150. I'm going to leave it there. And until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.